Buddy, welcome into another edition of the Computer America Show. We've got a great program planned for you. In the first hour, Slimware Utilities. Kevin Thomas, product director, is going to be here talking about their privacy tools for Windows 10 and how it makes privacy so much more simple to do on Windows 10 using their utility to do so. Very interesting hour. In the second hour, we're going to talk about Ada Lovelace. If you don't know who she was, we have two university professors, two PhDs, talking about Ada Lovelace, her contribution to the world of computer science, why there's an Ada Lovelace Day, all that great stuff, and you'll be well informed. So sit back, relax, enjoy 2 hours of Computer America coming straight at you right here.
1 minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America. Hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello, and welcome into another edition of the Computer America Show. It's the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. Computer America is heard around the world and coast to coast. And I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And we have a terrific show planned for you. Very excited about today's show. In the second hour, we're going to have two, not one, but two very prestigious university professors, PhDs, here with us from the Stevens Institute of Technology, going to be talking about Ada Lovelace, who she was, and why her name was so important in the field of computer science. And there's actually an Ada Lovelace Day, and we'll be talking about that with them in the second.
They helped re-edit, I think, like they updated a biography on her. Yeah. So they're here to talk about that as well. And I'm actually very interested in that segment because it's hard to imagine how, women weren't really allowed to do much back then, but it's weird to imagine how a woman that lived during the early to mid 1800s, so 1820s, 1850s, it has a profound effect on computer science, which really, most people don't think it started until, the 40s.
Yeah.
She was there 100 years before, and she was working on computers.
Yeah. I didn't even know, as you said, I didn't even know they had computers back then.
They had them.
Yeah, exactly. So they're both here to talk about it. And in the first hour, Slimware Utilities is here. That's right. We're going to be talking to them about all the controversy going on with Windows 10 and the issue of privacy. And Kevin Thomas is back with us here once again to talk about Slimware Utilities' Slim Cleaner Plus's privacy tools. So that's all happening. And anything else you want to mention before we get started?
No. I think we should just get into it.
Okay, well, let's do it. As I mentioned, our guest today is Slimware Utilities. Slimware Utilities is a U.S.-based software company founded on the premise that cloud computing and crowdsourced applications will revolutionize the performance of personal computers. Specifically, they provide consumers with downloadable software and services that clean, repair, update, and optimize personal computers. The products use the cloud and crowdsourcing to gather input from IT professionals and make unique, personalized decisions that improve a consumer's computer hardware and software configurations. Now, today, we'll be focusing on the controversial topic of Windows 10 and privacy, and focus on Slimware Utilities Slim Cleaner Plus's privacy tools, which was recently added to Slim Cleaner Plus. Now, returning to Computer America is Kevin Thomas. Kevin is Slimware Utilities Product Director. Kevin, welcome back into Computer America. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and it's great to be on the show again.
Absolutely. So, and we're so glad to have you here. There's been a lot of written recently about Windows 10 and privacy, the issue of privacy. Can you tell us a little bit why Windows 10 created such an uproar over this privacy issue?
Sure. So, I think there are two main reasons why there's such an uproar over the privacy settings. And the first reason is that there's a lot of functionality, such as location-based services and personal digital assistants like Microsoft's Cortana, that have been available on mobile for some time, in the form of Siri and Google Now. And users are starting to see this functionality migrate to the desktop PC realm, and it's not something that they're used to, and the accompanying privacy settings is just something they're not used to seeing in the desktop environment. So that's the first reason. The second reason is I feel like Microsoft defaulted the privacy settings to a level that are overly permissive with users' personal data. And when you set up Windows 10, there's an option to use Express settings, and choosing that option sets up a lot of defaults that I think are too lax with sharing your private data. Maybe it would be helpful if I gave an example of what, one of those settings is and what the defaults are, to kind of, kind of illustrate what I'm saying.
It seems to me that Microsoft gets into a lot of hot water over this issue, whether it be privacy or, default browser, everything that was the default settings, and it seems to get them into a lot of trouble. And I guess it's happening again.
It is. There's been a lot written in the press recently, and one of the features that comes up a lot is called Wi-Fi Sense. And Wi-Fi Sense is a feature that it's actually two subcomponents, but the goal of the feature is to make it very easy for the user on Windows 10 to connect to the internet. And one way it does that is it uses a crowdsourced database to connect to open Wi-Fi hotspots. And then the second way that it makes it easy to connect to the internet is that it allows you to easily share private Wi-Fi connection details with your social media contacts. Of course, the password is encrypted when it's stored on Microsoft servers, but sounds like a great feature. I mean, why are the default settings bad? Well, by default, it does try to connect to open hotspots, and not all networks are secure. It might not be a good idea to open a connection with a hotspot. Other people can see the information that you send across the network, and it could potentially put your personal data at risk. And in the same way, with the sharing of the private Wi-Fi connection details with your social media contacts, there's no granularity in sharing. You can't choose individual contacts to share that information with. I mean, certainly there are people on my Skype buddy list where, I might feel comfortable sharing my home Wi-Fi network with some close friends and family, but there are a lot of coworkers and business acquaintances on there as well. I might not feel as comfortable sharing that info with. So you can see how, kind of going through the Express settings and how Wi-Fi Sense gets configured, it might not be in the user's favor with the default settings.
Right. That certainly
are those settings carryovers from because you mentioned earlier that mobile and desktop, the line seems to be blurring. Like things that were strictly for mobile are now coming to the desktop in the form of let's say, digital assistants. Is this setting where, identify networks and immediately connect to any open network? I can see where that kind of comes in handy for phones, because data. But was that a setting strictly necessary for desktops?
I think you bring up a great point. I don't feel like it is pertinent to desktop. Certainly it's nice to seamlessly connect to the internet, but in competing with tablets and mobile devices, putting desktop computers in that same realm, you start to get feature creep, and that creates additional risk if those features aren't necessarily relevant to what you're trying to accomplish on desktop as compared to mobile.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Exactly. So there's this controversy, and now nothing has there been any reported issues at this point, or is this basically all up, potential stuff, that could happen, or have there been some breaches already?
Not any breaches that I know of. If you share your home Wi-Fi password with your contacts, it's not the end of the world. You can always go into the settings and turn off that feature. You can always change your Wi-Fi password. But I think where it becomes problematic and where this kind of contributes to the uproar that we mentioned is that, by choosing these defaults, you've put the burden on the user to go in and fix everything. And, I feel the average user isn't going to understand the scope of the privacy problem or how to fix it. I had to read through several tutorials on the web and figure out what was going on. And this creates kind of a sense of anxiety, a general sense of anxiety and frustration, especially because fixing the privacy settings, I feel like is more difficult than it ought to be. The privacy settings are scattered throughout the operating system settings panel, the Windows Edge browser settings, settings in the control panel. So it's all over the place. And if you go to Microsoft's website and read the documentation around these features, in parts, it's frankly a little bit confusing. I'll mention an example later. I won't go into detail now around the documentation on Wi-Fi Sense and how I had a very confusing user experience with that. And in addition to the documentation being a little bit confusing, there simply are some options that you can't change at all, which I'll also talk about later. One of those options is the feedback and diagnostic settings that are part of the operating system. So where does that leave us? You have some default settings that are overly permissive with your personal data, and it takes quite a bit of effort to fix. And I feel like that leaves the user with a pretty heavy burden. And I feel like that's kind of the root
Sure.
of the uproar, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, and that's why they need something to help them in that. And I believe that's probably the reason why Slimware Utilities decided to come up with the privacy tools feature in your Slim Cleaner Plus, because as you say, they're scattered all over the place. You would think that Microsoft would have a control panel that was designed for privacy for the whole operating system, but they don't. It's scattered. So you need something to help you, and that's I would believe one of the motivations behind the creation of privacy tools. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, that is correct. We regularly keep a pulse on the trending technology news. We read a lot of blogs, and we read about consumers' concerns about privacy in Windows 10. And, in reading a lot of these articles, I kind of came up with a theory that there are two classes of users. And the first class of users are those who prefer a high level of personalization, and they're more permissive with how their personal data is shared. They don't mind sharing a little bit of personal data in order to get a lot of personalization out of the product. And Windows 10 is a great product. It's terrific in terms of functionality and personalization. I think Cortana is a great tool. And I think Windows 10 is meeting the needs of the first class of users very well, those who prefer the personalization and don't mind about personal data sharing. But the second class of users is the flip of that. And I think we have a bunch of people who prefer a higher level of privacy, keeping their personal data very close at hand, and as a result are willing to make a trade-off where they're willing to accept a lot less personalization. And we felt like in reading these articles that Windows 10 is not meeting the needs of this second class of users very well. And that's part of the reason why we decided to build the tools in Slim Cleaner Plus to allow Windows 10 users to control the amount of data that they want to share, in exchange for these personalized services.
And just out of curiosity,
just real quick, part of this feels a little bit like spoiled innocence. Like I still feel like most consumers and especially the media, we kind of had a little honeymoon phase where Windows 10 is so great. Look at all these great features. They fixed the user interface. It's so amazing. But then the privacy settings came out, and now it's kind of like you have to wake up and say, all right, everything's not perfect. So
honeymoon's over.
It's good to, yeah, exactly. So it's good to go find tools. There are tools out there that can help you make it better.
Absolutely.
Now,
and
Kevin,
we hope to position Slim Cleaner Plus as one of those tools.
And let me ask you this: why did you choose? Because you have a number of products out there for Slimware users. Why did you choose Slim Cleaner Plus to be the home for privacy tools? What was the connection there?
That's a good question. Giving consumers the tool. More generally, giving consumers the tools they need to customize their PC settings, to manage items on your computer, to manage applications on your computer. All of this is at the heart of what Slimware Utilities products do. So, it was a natural step for us to add these privacy tools into our product suite. Why Slim Cleaner Plus? One idea that we had, I think I mentioned that this was a theory to begin with. We wanted to see if there was a second class of users whose needs weren't being met, and so we just wanted to expose it in a product that is a good fit in terms of the functionality. I think it fits best with Slim Cleaner Plus because Slim Cleaner Plus is all about managing items on your computer. I feel like privacy is one of those items that fits in Slim Cleaner Plus, and it's a popular product. We wanted to get this feature out to a lot of users, and we wanted to see what the reaction was. We wanted to see if there was actually demand for a feature like this. And so that's why we chose Slim Cleaner Plus as opposed to driver update. Just better functionality fit and enough volume to see if this feature could get traction.
And I see that you issued a press release on the 3rd of November, which was last week, announcing the arrival of the privacy tools in Slim Cleaner Plus. So this is a relatively new feature.
That's right. In fact, we just launched last week, and we made the feature. I'll get into the pricing and availability in more detail later, but it's something that users can use for free for now, and have access to it immediately by downloading the application.
Yeah. Well, so let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit. Take us through the privacy control tools and kind of explain to us what they do. Okay.
Sure. So the way that you would use these tools is we created a new tab called the Privacy tab on the left-hand side off of the Slim Cleaner Plus main page. And we present 4 options to users that allow them to customize their privacy settings. And the first option is called Enhance Your Privacy. And as with all of these options, it's a simple checkbox where the user can click yes to enhance your privacy or no to leave that off. And when the user clicks enhance your privacy, we do two things. We disable settings that collect information for targeted advertising purposes. There's something called an advertising ID tied to the operating system that essentially allows app developers to track you across application usage and better target ads to you based on that single unique identifier for each user. And you might not like that, and you might want to turn that off for privacy reasons. I think that's a pretty compelling thing to turn off, but you might also like to have ads that are relevant to you based on your interest and based on your application usage. I mean, I live in Manhattan, and unfortunately I don't have room for a pickup truck on the street, and I don't like seeing ads for pickup trucks because I know I'll never be able to get one. But I do appreciate websites that know a little bit about me and can offer ads in my interest area. So that's one reason why you might want to keep it on. But for other users, targeted advertising is something that they don't want following them around between applications. And I think that makes sense. The second thing that enhance your privacy option does is it disables sending of data to Microsoft about how one types and writes. And presumably this is used for, and this gets back to Ben's point earlier about mobile and tablet devices. Presumably this feature is used for handwriting recognition on tablet PCs so that it can recognize your handwriting and turn that into text and language that the computer can deal with. And if you have a laptop like I do and you don't plan to do much handwriting with a stylus, it might make sense to turn that feature off. If that's something that you use on a regular basis and you want a highly personalized and customized stylus handwriting recognition experience, you might want to keep that on. But I do feel like there are laptop users who don't interact with a stylus very often. So that's the first option, enhance your privacy. And again, it's just a simple checkbox.
Right. Yeah. Do you allow different levels of privacy to be shared with Microsoft? Because like a lot of this data, I feel like most people would be perfectly okay with sending. It's for them to collect information to make voice recognition better, to make handwriting or OCR better, things like that. I think most people would be okay with. But certain things, I'm sure they wouldn't. Data, your history, things like that. Are there different levels, or is this or is SlimCleaner just going to be shut it all down or share everything?
We basically took Microsoft's privacy settings, and there were more than 4 options that we control, but we boiled it down to 4 levels of granularity, and each level of granularity is within the feature that I'll talk about. So for example, if you click enhance your privacy, it disables 2 settings, and there's not any granularity in there. You can't enable or disable those settings individually. Now, right. The way that the privacy tools work is that the default is that it reflects what is set on your operating system. So it reflects your preferences that have already been set. And if you truly want one on and one off, you can always go wander into the operating system settings and pull the trigger there on and get the level of granularity you want with your privacy control. I mean, where we might be able to add value, since we don't offer, I think, as much granularity as a power user would want. I think we're targeting the average, middle range user. We try to provide enough description next to the checkbox about what we're doing to, enable the user to potentially go in and flip these switches on their own at the operating system level if they're interested. So there's always another way to do it, and that's directly through the operating system. That's the reason why we don't offer more granularity is that we just made a design decision to try to keep this as simple as possible for the user, if that makes sense.
There's a lot to be said for that. It's for a lot of people, for some people, they feel like, yeah, as you're calling it, the granularity really makes sense. But it seems like the motif of Slim Cleaner has always been keep it simple, make it easy, make it fast. And I guess when you give people just these check boxes, it's a couple of seconds, they read it and they hit check or uncheck, and it's that simple.
Yeah, simplicity and speed was our goal with this feature, and that's what we set out to accomplish with the check boxes. The second feature is very similar to the first feature. It's another checkbox, and this feature is called Limit Feedback and Diagnostic Settings. And Windows 10 ships with 3 diagnostic settings: Basic, Enhanced, and Full. And my understanding is that, without going into too much detail, Basic includes information just about the level of performance of your machine and very basic error reporting. Make sure that the operating system is functioning normally. The enhanced level of the feedback and diagnostics has everything in the basic level, but it also sends along information about how you use the operating system. So, what things you're clicking on, how long you're in certain features, with the goal of improving the user experience for the end user. But the flip side of that is you might not want third parties, mostly just Microsoft, knowing how you're using specific features within the operating system and how you're using specific apps. You may just not want others to know that, and if that's the case, it makes sense to flip it back to basic. And so then there's another option. There's a third option called Full. That includes everything in Basic and everything, the app monitoring that you get in Enhanced. And then Full, and this is kind of what sounds a little bit trickier, Full includes system files and memory snapshots with the error reporting. And according to Microsoft's own language, that could unintentionally include parts of a document that the user was working on. So, you do have to be careful and conscious when you have that feature enabled. And what we do with our feedback and diagnostic settings in Slim Cleaner Plus privacy tools is we set this feature back to its most basic level. And you might be thinking to yourself, why can't you even turn that off and just completely not send any data back to Microsoft on error reporting, performance, application usage? And the reason is Microsoft doesn't allow you to do that. Windows 10 is the first operating system where participation in feedback and diagnostics is mandatory. And I think that's also, I had mentioned earlier, in kind of contributing to the uproar, not having the option to turn this off completely has rubbed some users the wrong way, and rightfully so.
Yeah, but it's a fine line. I mean, it's sort of like how much of your privacy do you give up for security? And we see that if in airports, it's the same thing.
I think there are a couple lines being crossed there too.
But where are those lines? It's getting kind of gray out there, and now we're seeing it here with our computers.
It is, and I mean, if Microsoft never collected information about error reporting, Windows would crash a lot, and we probably wouldn't like to use it as much as we do today. Windows 10 is a stable operating system that works very well for a lot of people, and you have to appreciate the fact that a lot of that is fueled by this error reporting telemetry that they have installed.
Yeah. So again, it's a balancing act. I mean, how much of your privacy are you willing to give up to have a stable operating system? And it really can't. It's hard. So at least with privacy tools, at least you have some control over, what you're doing. Obviously, you can't turn everything off, but you can certainly turn off most everything with a few clicks, which is really, really nice.
Exactly. And in addition to those, we also deactivate the Wi-Fi Sense feature, which I had talked about earlier. We make it easy to turn off the automatic connection to open hotspots. And we make it easy to turn off the sharing of your private Wi-Fi networks with your social media contacts. So that's the third privacy tool.
Right.
And go ahead.
Well, let me ask you that, because we're coming to the bottom of the hour break,
Sure.
You've selected all of these different areas to focus on. You mentioned the Wi-Fi and the different ones. What I'd like you to tell our listeners a little bit about when we come back is, how did you decide which settings to focus on? Because there's so many, and what was a little bit of your decision process as to why you set that. And then also, I want to talk a little bit about, obviously this took a while to develop, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the process that you had to go through to develop the privacy tools for Windows 10 in Slim Cleaner Plus. Okay? So
sounds like a plan.
Yeah, we'll do that when we come back. All right, you're listening to the Computer America Show. Ben and I are talking to Kevin Thomas. Kevin is the product director for Slimware Utilities. We're talking about Slim Cleaner Plus's privacy tools and the controversy between Windows 10 and privacy. We'll continue on with them. We have another News Tips Bulletin review coming up as well. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Computer America Show.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons: accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons: accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? That's so great, huh? It's the fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they're available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com.
He used to say he was the guy who put the ram in Ramada. Marty Winston with the News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time the Amperage Mighty Mic S smartphone shotgun. A mic doesn't have to be very good to perform better than the ones built into smartphones. Amperage sent their Mighty Mic S with a fairly good condenser mic element in a shotgun housing about half as long as a soda straw and with a 4-part headset plug out the bottom side. A shotgun mic puts air vents behind the mic element, so sound pressure from the sides can cancel out the same sounds from the front, meaning a fairly directional sensitivity beam that can somewhat reject or reduce surrounding ambient noise. We tested it at short range and at arm's length, both on axis and off, to confirm that it works as expected. Bottom line, an Amperage Mighty Mic S helps a smartphone recorder communicate in noisy places. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. Thanks for sticking with us as we are here with Slimware Utilities and more specifically Kevin Thomas, who is the product director for Slimware Utilities, and we're talking all about this new Slim Cleaner Plus privacy settings that are easy to manage. And we're just about to get into how did you decide which features to focus on? Because if anyone unknowingly wanders into the Windows 10 settings panel, there are tons and tons of settings that I'm sure you could have made on-off switches for all over the place. But you simplified it to, I guess, the 4 most relevant.
Yeah, exactly. And that's precisely where we started. And this will kind of give you an idea of a product manager's mindset. I went in the Windows 10 control panel and the Windows 10 setting panel and just simply made a list of settings that I felt were relevant to the user's privacy. And I analyzed places where information was being collected. And so I took that list and I compared it against the articles and the tutorials that I was seeing on the web in terms of how to improve your privacy with Windows 10. There are certainly a lot of great tutorials out there. And I took the approach where, I said, wouldn't it be great if we could take a tutorial, or at least some of the subcomponents in it, and just make this as simple as checking one box to get all of this stuff quickly and easily set on, for the user. So I went back to the settings and kind of looked at what could be a simple on-off checkbox and pulled out features that could be turned on and off, pulled out features that were mentioned over and over again in these tutorials, and boiled it down to 4 simple checkboxes. And I actually didn't mention this before. We added a 5th checkbox, and that 5th checkbox essentially checks all of the other boxes. So it makes it even easier. with one click, you can get all of 4 of the privacy settings that we chose to manage. You can hit them all with one click, and we tried to make it super simple for the user. So that's how we decided, what to put on that page. And, to be honest, this is kind of a test that we're running. We want to see how users react to the feature. We want to see if users use it. And if it's popular and it looks good, we'll certainly consider adding some more privacy tools on here, because there certainly are many areas of the operating system.
Yeah, I see. The one you're referring to, it's called maximum privacy mode. That's check all the boxes, and that turns them on. And the ones that we're looking here, I'm looking at a screenshot. You have the ones that enhance your privacy. The second one is limit Windows feedback and diagnostics. And the third one is stop, quote unquote, getting to know you feature. So I see 3. So you've added a 4th one since the screenshot was taken?
Yeah, we added, so the getting to know you feature, I'll discuss that briefly, and then I'll tell you what the 4th one was. The getting to know you feature essentially turns off Cortana, which is Microsoft's version of Siri or Google Now. It's a personal digital assistant, or rather digital personal assistant. It can do things like, I'm sure you've played around with it, but you can check the weather, you can check your schedule, you can check a flight, get directions, so forth. Great tool, a lot of functionality, a lot of personalization there. But you do have to give up a lot of information to get that personalization. And some of that information includes, voice input, learning how you talk, your location history to get stuff that's contextually relevant, your contacts, your calendar details, and so forth. These may be things that that users are uncomfortable sharing. So we enable the user to stop getting to know you and stop the data ingestion that happens around Cortana. And unfortunately, and we try to make this clear to the user, this does disable Cortana digital assistant. You can't use it if you have this checkbox on.
Right. If you permit me to read, it says here prevents collection of search and communication history, which Cortana uses to provide personalized messages, and also turns off dictation services as well.
Right. And that gets back to the operating system learning about how you speak and learning how to process your voice correctly.
Right. Exactly. And obviously, this is very cutting edge stuff, which we love here on the show because that's what it's all about. And so we have these three, and since the screenshot was taken, you've added a fourth. So tell us a little bit about that.
We have. So I'd spoken a little bit earlier about the Wi-Fi Sense feature, and I think I touched on this briefly, but before the call ended. But we did add the ability for the user to easily turn off the two subcomponents of the Wi-Fi Sense feature. Mm-hmm. And this is a good example of where the functionality is spread across the settings panel. This is actually outside of the privacy settings and actually in the network and Wi-Fi settings of the settings app. And this gets back to our point of just trying to aggregate, put everything in one place and make it easy to access with one click.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, a lot of deep thought on the part of Slimware Utilities to make this. And this is obviously a work in progress. You're continuing to modify and add things to it as more and more of these. I guess you get feedback from users. So how long did it take you to develop the privacy tools? Tell us a little bit about the process.
Sure. So, this might be a good opportunity to discuss our product development process in general, but the feature took about 4 weeks to put together, about a month's worth of time. And you're thinking, well, this is just 4 simple check boxes. Why did something like this take so long? And well, for reasons I got into earlier, we put first step is just to put a lot of thought into it up front to try to pick the things that you think users will want to use. Mm-hmm. And then, usually the second step is we have a compliance team of lawyers here who like to look at the marketing claims that we're making and the product claims that we're making, just to make sure that we can do what we say we can do, and sure. And usually the features emerge from that second step of the process a little bit crisper, and the language is a little bit more accurate. Mm-hmm. And so once we have a good read on we expect we'll be compliant and meet all their standards, and we have a good idea, then we typically take it to the engineering team. And I'll go in our software development management tool, and I'll write written word software specifications. And I'll also use a wireframing tool called Balsamic. It makes it very easy to kind of drag and drop visualizations. If you're ever trying to explain what something should look like to someone, I found a picture is far better than the paragraphs I write. People just tend to resonate well with an image. Yeah. So we'll mock it up, and at that point we'll usually have the engineers start churning their wheels and thinking about how to build it. And then in parallel, if we need to, we'll send it to the design team, and the design team will look at things like what kind of icons should the menu buttons have. What kind of font should we use on this page? What size should it be? Is it readable? What color should we use? This is mostly just text and checkboxes, so we didn't have too much of a design component this time. But for many other projects we undertake, we'll have a lot of design.
Well, so obviously a lot of deep thought went into designing the privacy tools. So I'm curious and our listeners I'm sure would like to know, why did you make this a free feature in your premium product, Slim Cleaner Plus?
Yeah, that's a great question. We feel strongly about giving users the degree of control needed to limit the sharing of data and personal information. We want all users to be able to easily select the level of privacy that they want. And users, of course, as I mentioned earlier, they can manually set their privacy settings within Windows 10, but users may not know how to do it, what to check, what they need to check and have on and off, because they probably use the express settings in setting up Windows 10. At some point, SlimCleaner Plus is a premium product. We do have paid licenses, and at some point we may integrate the privacy tools into our premium one-click scan, which again is just a single button click that does a bunch of stuff and automated and an easy way to clean up your computer, and we may integrate the privacy tools into that functionality. But at least for an introductory period, these tools are free for users to take advantage of.
There you go, and you can't do much better than free. So certainly really nice. And again, I like the fact when you look at again, I'm looking at the screenshot here. When you have the button or the checkbox, you do have a nice description exactly of what it does. What it does, and each one you have an explanation so people can kind of further drill down as to what this checkbox is doing for them. And I really, really like the fact that you do that, because again, just hitting a checkbox and not knowing what it does, that just makes you even more uncertain. So I'm glad Slimware Utilities is doing that and did it that way. You mentioned that this, I have the press release. This is relatively a new product, a week or so. So what kind of early response are you seeing with this?
It's been very positive so far, and the privacy tools became available to consumers last week, and we're already seeing tens of thousands of downloads. And even within that group, we're finding that people do want to be conservative in terms of how much of their data is collected and shared. And anecdotally, just from our customer feedback channels, we've had one or two instances of users being appreciative of the feature. And so we'll continue to keep an eye on our inbox and gauge how popular this feature is. And as always, if you change your mind, it's as simple as unchecking a button, or if it really comes to it, rolling up your sleeves and doing a little research and getting into the operating system and clicking those buttons and getting the granularity that you want to customize your individual needs.
Exactly. So again, this is a free feature, and we understand why now. Now, are you going to, as we just saw, you added a new feature from last week to this week. So are there going to be additional features like this added to the privacy tools, and also to the SlimCleaner Plus in general? I mean, I'm assuming it's always a work in progress. You're always adding and changing and modifying, which is the whole benefit to the crowdsourced and cloud computing element you add to these products.
Yeah, exactly. Yes to both. I mean, we're looking to add more privacy tools and more features to SlimCleaner Plus in general. I mean, we're always looking for new ways to provide consumers with additional solutions, especially related to the trends that we're seeing in the industry. And like I mentioned, if these early features resonate well with users, there are more privacy tools that we can add. I think there's more that we can do around location sharing. We don't limit much location data within SlimCleaner Plus right now, and that's another opportunity to enhance the user's privacy. Just make a very simple way to hide the user's location. And actually, as part of my research for the Wi-Fi Sense feature, Wi-Fi Sense does use the user's location. And I was kind of reading about the circumstances under which it uses the location device, and something jumped out at me. I mean, even if the location feature is turned off in the settings panel, Wi-Fi Sense can still access your location. There's another location setting that you actually need to turn off on the same panel with a very similar name to fully get location turned off. It's the difference between the location setting and the location for this device setting. And if that sounds confusing, I think because it is. I was a little confused navigating around there, and so I think there's an opportunity around location to make that more simple for the user to just turn off. And then in general, yeah, of course, we're thinking about adding more features to Slim Cleaner Plus. We've got one coming out in the next couple of weeks to help clean up previous versions of an operating system you may have laying around if you've upgraded. And we're looking to improve, one of the features of Slim Cleaner Plus is that will let you know if newer versions of software are available, and we want to expand our database and the versions that we have that we're checking for, so that users can easily know if new versions of software becomes available. So those are examples of an additional privacy tool and an additional feature for Slim Cleaner Plus in general that we're thinking about adding, and like I said, looking at industry trends to develop features that are contextually relevant and give users just in general, it doesn't need to necessarily be just related to privacy, just to give users more control over their machine, what's on your machine, the items on there, the applications on there, the settings on there.
I would never have thought that making sure that your computer is up to date, by checking for new versions of software and tie that into privacy. But I guess you could do that. I mean, because then people would know, well, he's running an older application or an older version of something. I'm assuming that's how that would invade someone's privacy. How would that invade their privacy?
Well, I'd mentioned those features as separate from one another. I think the risk with location in general is just the idea of Microsoft knowing or having a sense of where you are physically located is unsettling for some people. But it wouldn't tie in any way necessarily with the versions of the software that you're running.
Okay, but knowing where you are definitely would.
Yeah.
A lot of people just don't want anyone else knowing where they are for good reasons. That certainly would be that could be a problem.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, it gets back to the trade-off, and what do you get for it? You get better recommendations that are contextually relevant to where you are, but at the same time, it could be unsettling to have someone know your location.
It was interesting that the Wi-Fi sensor actually had two different versions to turn it off. The two different locations. You turn one off and you say, okay, that's fine. I'm now, and then nope. There's another one that you overlooked, and they're still going to know where you are with the. So, if it's that confusing for people like yourself who are obviously professionals, okay, can you imagine how convoluted it could be to just a general novice user? I would think it'd be extremely.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, exactly. So, kudos to Slimware Utilities for developing something like this and making it easy to use, easy to understand, and obviously you're getting great early response already. Talk to us a little bit about. You mentioned a couple of them. That what's in the queue? What are some of the additional features that you're looking to add to Slim Cleaner Plus?
Well, I mentioned always building out the privacy tools.
In what direction? I mean, when you say building out, you're going to add more privacy features or more checkboxes? Is that the idea?
Yeah, my goal would be to take the longest, most complicated tutorial on the internet for enhancing your privacy in Windows 10 and turn it into a single checkbox click. That's our product goal. And there are more things that we can do to achieve that goal. And one of the common ones that I see come up a lot in these tutorials is what we had just talked about, are the location settings. I think there's more potentially we could do to block the diagnostics fully. Although I would want to see how that affects the user experience before we went down that path.
Yeah, because you're right. You just can't use a broad brush, a stroke, and just say, okay, we'll limit that, because there are ramifications behind something like that, and it's your job and the job of Slimware Utilities to make sure that the stroke isn't that broad, or if it is, offer a couple of subcategories in that checkbox. But you can't. But there's the balancing. You can't have too many checkboxes, because then you're getting back to the complications. Or at least have an explanation for what each checkbox does. It's a real balancing act for you, Kevin.
It is, and the goal, as always, is to make this as simplest for the user as possible, and being very attuned and listening to customers' feedback about the feature and using that to improve the usability of what we offer.
And therein lies the beauty of what you do with the crowdsourcing to gather this information and making personalized decisions to improve the consumers' configurations, because that's what you're doing, and to get that kind of feedback that keeps the product a living dynamic product that it's constantly being fine-tuned to get it exactly where you want it to be. It's amazing. Where can consumers where can consumers find these privacy tools, and where can they download Slim Cleaner Plus?
Sure. So head on over to slimcleaner.com and click the download button on Slim Cleaner Plus. And after you install the app, as you're looking at the main application screen, if you're a Windows 10 user, on the left-hand side, you'll notice a tab called Privacy, and you'll click in there, and you'll be able to use the tools and hopefully take control over how your personal data is shared.
Now, what is at this time? What is the cost for Slim Cleaner Plus?
So just to reemphasize, the privacy tools are free, but there are many other premium features in Slim Cleaner Plus, and you can get a 1-year license for 3 PCs for $29.95. Wow,
that's really not bad at all. It's amazing, considering all the work and everything that these Slimware utility products do. The pricing is extremely affordable, and certainly something that people everywhere, if you have a Windows PC, this is something you really should consider to have in your toolbox.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Kevin, we're almost out of time. Anything else? Anything you want to leave our listeners with before we say good afternoon?
Sure. So, I hope I didn't come off as overly critical of Windows 10. I mean, I think it's a fantastic product. It provides a great deal of personalization. And guess what? It's free. I mean, how great is that? We're simply just offering tools to help consumers who prefer to share less data in exchange for less personalization, and to do it in an easy and automated way. But other than that, it's been great being on the show. I hope I've provided your listeners with some useful tips about how to keep their PC running smoothly. And I hope everyone has a chance to visit our website at slimcleaner.com and try out the application and try out the new privacy tools.
Yes, and again, or just go to slimwareutilities.com. You can check it all out there. Or go to computeramerica.com. We have links to the Slimware Utilities website at our homepage at computeramerica.com, so you can see this for yourself. But, we here at the show are always constantly saying, make backups, make sure that you have tools to help you make your Windows experience easier, better, so you can be more productive and not get bogged down in the mire of housekeeping. You want to use your computer to be productive, and you don't want to get bogged down in the housekeeping, behind the scenes. You want to get the work done, and things like Slim Cleaner Plus and all of the Slimware Utilities products really are focused to help you do just that, and it's really wonderful. Again, Check them out at slimwareutilities.com. Kevin, I want to thank you for being here with us on the show. Very enlightening, and I'm sure we're going to. This is a work in progress, so we'll continue to hear from you and Slimware Utilities as to the directions that you continue to move forward in to make people's experience and computing experience a more enjoyable and productive one.
It's great. I look forward to it, and as always, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.
Kevin, thank you again. Listen, you have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you next time, okay?
You too. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Everyone.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, there you go. Slimware Utilities. Again, you can see it at the website at slimwareutilities.com, and just check out all the wonderful things that they have to offer. Now, coming up in the next hour, we're going to kind of switch gears. I did not know that they had an Ada Lovelace Day. The Stevens Institute of Technology is here with us. We're going to have two professors, Dr. Andrew Russell, who is the Director of Program in Science and Technology Studies, and Dr. Robin Hammerman are going to be joining us. She is a professor also at the Stevens Institute of Technology, and we're going to be talking about who Ada Lovelace was, and and her contributions.
She is, for anyone out there, she is considered to be the world's first programmer.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
It's going to be a very cool interview.
Yeah. And did you know that they named a programming language after her? It's called Ada. They dedicated.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they did. All right, you listen to the Computer America Show. It's the top of the hour. Ben and I are going to take just a brief moment, and then we'll be back for hour 2 of the Computer America Show. Please stay with us. We're going to be right back.
Broadcasting live, it's the only national radio talk show on computers to air every weeknight. Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. The first hour's behind us, but there's still more of tech news, tech talk, and your phone calls. We're being beamed nationwide at computeramerica.com. You got computer problems? Bring them on. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into hour 2 of the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. This is the Computer America Show, and I'm your host, Craig Crossman. And Ben should be here somewhere.
I'm kidding. Mute button always gets me. And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And welcome into the second hour of the Computer America Show. Very interesting interview with Slimware Utilities, Kevin Thomas. Again, privacy tools. If you missed it, don't worry. You can listen to it again. We archive all of our shows at computeramerica.com on any page. Just click the archive selection. You'll see all the places where you can see. You can listen to the show. We also archive our videos at computeramerica.com. It's all there. So in this second hour, we're going to, as I said, switch gears and talk about Ada Lovelace. If you don't know who she was, hopefully after this hour, you'll have a much better idea. Again, if you have a comment or a question for a guest, give us a call at 347-884-8881. That's 347-884-8881. I'll get you on and get you through. Or if you have a question for a guest, you don't want to go on the air, any page at computeramerica.com. On the upper right-hand corner, just click. It says Submit a Question. It'll take you to our question submission page. Type in your question. Click the Submit button, and Ben and I will see your question, and we'll ask it we'll present it to our guests on your behalf. It's just that simple. And, of course, the live video stream, which you can watch at computeramerica.com, which is the internet home of our broadcast here at Computer America. So anything else you want to mention before we introduce our guest this hour, Ben?
No. I think it was a good first hour interview, but I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this particular one, so we should just jump right into it.
Okay, well, it's called the Stevens Institute of Technology, and we have Dr. Andrew Russell, who is the Director Program in Science and Technology Studies, and Dr. Robin Hammerman, who is a professor at the Stevens Institute of Technology. Both of today's guests are here to discuss who Ada Lovelace was, her contributions to the field of computer science, and why there's even an Ada Lovelace Day. Doctors, welcome into Computer America. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to the show. I can call you Andy and Robin, all right? So if that's okay with you. And I want to kind of start off this with Robin. And why don't you tell listeners who was Ada Lovelace and why there is an Ada Lovelace Day?
Well, that's a good question. So let me answer it for you the best I can.
Right.
Ada Lovelace was born in 1815. She was the only legitimate child of Annabella Milbank, or Lady Byron, and her husband, Lord Byron, who was known as mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
Yes.
It's an interesting way to be remembered, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Ada never met her father, but he did write of her. He actually took off after she was born. He left England forever, never to return as a self-exile. He needed to get away for a while, and he took a long while for the rest of his life. He never returned to England. He wrote about her as the sole daughter of my house and heart. But again, they never really got to know each other. Ada, became famous in her own right as a computing history pioneer, which I imagine we'll be talking about later today. She was really gifted in mathematics. Her mother was too. In fact, Byron called his then wife the Princess of Parallelograms. Later on, Ada's collaborator, Charles Babbage, would call her the Enchantress of Numbers. So you see there's a theme here among the women in that family.
Yes.
Right?
Charles Babbage, the creator of the was it the Indifference Engine? He created some.
It was the Difference Engine, and it was the Analytical Engine.
Yes, exactly. So he himself, obviously, very prestigious in the early days of computer science. So that was.
Oh, absolutely. But before she met Babbage, Ada was, absolutely. She showed an aptitude for mathematics very early on. So her mother arranged for her to be tutored privately in the study of mathematics exclusively. She studied lots of other things too, but mathematics became very important. She didn't meet Charles Babbage until she was 17 years old. Earlier than that, however, again, she demonstrated such a fantastic aptitude. And she was very well prepared to meet him when she did.
I guess she was in the category of other famous female scientists like Marie Curie, Madame Curie, back in those days in the 1800s. There were so few and far between. You can basically count them on one hand, but it's interesting.
Yeah, certainly. There's so few, and it's interesting to note that Ada was tutored privately because there was no place for her in school. In fact, when she did have her own tutors, the first couple didn't even work out because they couldn't manage her aptitude. So not only was she unable to be in school with other kids, with the boys, she struggled to reach her potential as a youngster with the educators until her mother found the appropriate person. But when she was 17 years old, she did have a very special tutor, and she had an affair with him. Her mother wasn't home, but she got caught.
Those kids, those
by her
kids.
mother's friends.
Those kids, you just can't leave them alone, right?
And in part, it was because of that Ada got married in 1835 to William King. Her mother wanted her to find a respectable situation for herself, and so she married William King and in 1835, and he was named Earl of Lovelace, and that's how she became Lady Ada Lovelace. She gave birth to 3 children in fairly quick succession, and she intermittently resumed her mathematical studies. And by 1843, she published the famous notes that well, I guess we'll talk about today. She did, sadly, her life was cut short by uterine cancer in 1852. It seems somewhat futile to imagine what more she could have done, but it's certainly useful to think of Ada as a visionary whose work in the middle of the 19th century resonates today in the potential we're now seeing among so many young people in STEM fields, especially women.
How old was she when she passed away?
Well, let's do the math. She was born in 1815 and she passed away in 1852, so she was 37 years old.
Way too young.
Which is ironically the same age as her father was when he passed away. Yeah.
Wow. So what I guess why did they have an Ada Lovelace Day? When is the Ada Lovelace Day, Robin?
That's also a good question. I will attempt to answer it. Well, Ada Lovelace Day was invented in 2009 by Sue Charman Anderson, and it's opened up so many roads for women in STEM fields, especially in the tech world. Sue's enormously successful project started with a simple request that people blog on a particular date. That year it was March, about women in technology whom they admire. This inspired people from all over the world to discover more about the valuable contributions of women scientists and share their stories. Over 2,000 people responded to her request in 2009. That was quite amazing. And again, you know, to discover more about the valuable contributions of women scientists and to share their stories, especially about women in technology, is enormously powerful. I rather like, and I know Andy likes, the humanities component of sharing stories. It has so much generative potential, you know, for recovering the past, for truly claiming the present, and for anticipating future directions in the history of science. Now, Ada Lovelace Day takes place every year on the second Tuesday of October, and I have to say there is no particular reason for this date. It was chosen strictly out of convenience, I imagine, in the academic schedule and other kinds of schedules.
No, it makes sense. And you keep referring to STEM, and let our listeners know that we're not talking about stem cell research. STEM is the four specific disciplines, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We've had Intel on here talking because they're very big into STEM and the contests, and so hopefully our listeners.
And they're also very big on promoting females getting into STEM, and
yes.
so are a lot of companies that we've had on lately. Is that you know, we've been doing this for a while, but it seems like really in the past 5 years or so, there's a massive movement to get more females, you know, more pronounced, females and minorities, more pronounced in the STEM fields.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's this is Andy here at Stevens. Women in STEM is a really important issue for the industry and for academics. It's framed in a couple of different ways, and they're both pretty compelling. One way is that we're simply not getting enough out of our population. That if we're not giving opportunities to women, if we're not granting opportunities, educational and professional opportunities to minorities, in other words, to anyone other than the white males who have dominated the computing professions, then we're not being very efficient. Right? This is an administrator's argument. This is an economist's argument that we're just not getting enough out of the human resources we have at our potential. So that's a compelling argument, and I can see that making sense in corporate boardrooms. The other angle that I find more compelling is it's just the right thing to do. That there are people all over the world who have vast amounts of potential, and we have educational institutions, professional institutions that help them realize their potential. And throughout modern history, those have been slanted towards powerful constituencies between males and whites in particular. And so for justice reasons and for efficiency reasons, women in STEM and minority in STEM is finally taken on a life of its own, especially in the last few years. There's a long way to go, but with events like Ada Lovelace Day and the animating forces behind Ada Lovelace Day, including Sue Anderson, who Robin mentioned, and Valerie Aurora, who we're going to talk about later, we feel optimistic that the tide is turning.
So I'd like for both of you to speak a little bit about the College of Arts and Letters at Stevens Institute of Technology and where this project was conceived. Let's start off with you, Robin.
Well, the College of Arts and Letters is a very small school, but it's very mighty. And we're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Stevens is an engineering school, and all of our students major in topics in engineering. So the College of Arts and Letters allows students to engage the humanities component to their education, so that when they finish Stevens, they're well-rounded individuals ready to go on to either graduate school or work or whatever they choose to do. They'll be doing it as again, well-rounded individuals. We, again, we're a relatively small school. We're only about 6,000 students. I'm not sure if you think that's small, but we kind of do.
Excellent.
That's actually very good. It's you know, the university that I went to had, you know, about 5,000. So 6,000, yeah, it's a great school.
Right. So, Andy, you want to expand on that as well?
Yeah, so one thing that Robin said I'll take a little bit of issue with. So a majority of the students at Stevens are engineering majors, but there are a few students, about 20 to 25% of the students at Stevens major in other fields. Some of those fields are science, like physics, or we have a new biology major. We have several majors in business, and we even have majors in our College of Arts and Letters in the traditional humanities, as well as a program in music and technology, a program in visual arts and technology, and the program that I'm the director of, the newest program in our college, which is the program in science and technology studies. And or STS, as we call it here, and as these programs are known nationwide.
And I might add, it's the most wonderful program ever.
So it fell on fertile ground here. The STS program was started in 2012. It grew because we had a lot of faculty teaching humanities and social sciences who knew something about some aspect of science and technology. So Robin is a great example here, where she teaches literature. Her PhD is in literature, but she's interested also in science fiction and some aspects of technology and how technology appears in literature. Or to take myself as an example, I'm an historian. I teach American history, but I also do research in the history of technology and the history of computing, and publish on those subjects. So the founding dean of Cal, a guy named Jim McClellan, saw a bunch of people like us around, and in conversation with our most recent dean, Lisa Dolling, we decided that we could start an undergraduate program that where we could punch above our weight, essentially, and pull together an interdisciplinary program of historians, of literature experts, of social scientists, to focus on science and technology. And so two components are relevant for this discussion. One is that we do have undergraduate majors. We actually now have over 20 undergraduate majors in the program. And the second component is that we've got a terrific faculty and a very vibrant research focus for the program. And so for the last 5 years or so, we've been hosting conferences here at Stevens on topics that have to do with science, technology, and society. So, for example, we had this conference on Ada Lovelace, which is where the book got started. This past year, we had a conference on Frederick Winslow Taylor and Taylorism. Taylor was a graduate of Stevens, our most famous alum. Some years earlier, we had a conference on George Perkins Marsh, a famous diplomat and environmentalist of the 19th century. And we might even have a conference in a couple years on Frankenstein. Again, a perfect topic at the crosshairs of literature, science, and technology. So this is really our sweet spot here at Stevens, especially where the humanities are concerned, is that anything related to science, technology, medicine, public health, and society and humankind, we've got something to say about it.
it really seemed like for a couple of decades before this, it was you could go into certain fields and sure, science technology wasn't there, but as we keep going and as we explore here, 5 days a week on the show with all of our news stories, science and technology is affecting everything. There is nothing that we talk about that isn't affected in some way by new technology. I mean, things as basic as you think hiking in the mountains would be a very, low tech solution, but even that has a plethora of different devices that you have to take with you nowadays. I mean, it's good to see that you guys are getting out ahead of it, and I can definitely see where that's going to be booming in the next couple decades. It's definitely going to expand.
Now,
historically, we have we were the first major educational institution in the U.S. to implement a personal computer requirement for its students. And back then, a pioneering technology project resulted in the networking of the entire Stevens campus, creating really one of the nation's first intranets.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
So Stevens has always been identified with technology, and you're right, it's everywhere, and so this creates great educational opportunities for our students, both the students who are interested in humanities, but understand that the world is increasingly technological. If they want to study English or history, they need to understand some scientific and technological aspects of that.
Sure.
At the same time, our engineering and science students also need to have a richer sense of the humanity of these things that, science or technology or engineering without some sense of ethics, some sense of social responsibility, can actually do grave damage to our world and to society. So, it's a big responsibility that we feel to bring these things together in some meaningful way.
Valerie Aurora. Let's talk a little bit about her. She was the executive director of the ADA Initiative and was a plenary speaker at the conference. Robin, how did you connect with her?
Well, Andy and I knew that we were doing something wonderful at Stevens by hosting the ADA conference, and we were seeking out people who were also doing something wonderful in the ADA world. And Val's work as executive director of the ADA initiative really fit the bill perfectly. Her energy and her commitment to supporting women in open technology seems boundless. We knew that our conference attendees would respond well to that, and they did, especially our students. When Val took the podium, that room was packed, and the air seemed positively electric. We know as the ADA initiative actually closed in October 2015, but the work that she started there with her co-founder, Mary Gardner, is ongoing. Some of the wonderful work that Val and Mary have done, and that is still very much alive even on the internet, includes the Ally Skills Workshop, which it's for men, and it teaches them very simple everyday ways to support women in their workplaces and communities. And participants, they learn these techniques that work at the office, at conferences, and online. So you can see how students were very attracted to the kind of work that Val does. And the skills they teach are relevant everywhere, including skills that are relevant to open technology and culture communities. And participants feel more confident in speaking up to support women after they either take an Ally Skills Workshop or hear about the potential for them. So Val also has done this wonderful work with folks to help them overcome what we call imposter syndrome, which is prevalent, especially among women in tech. Imposter syndrome is really what it sounds like. It's the feeling that you aren't really qualified for the work you're doing and that you'll be discovered as a fraud. This is really prevalent among women in open technology and culture, certainly prevalent among our undergraduates, however they identify with their gender. And so, again, Val's work is so energetic and alive with so much potential, and students really responded to that very well, as did all the conference attendees. We're very glad that we were able to connect with her and bring her here.
If I could say just a couple words about Val too. Two things struck me very powerfully in my interactions with her. One was a correspondence, and one was in response to a question after her plenary address. In the correspondence before the conference, I got a note from her saying simply that she wanted us to include a code of conduct on our conference program. And this struck me as a little strange. Usually the conference program just has, a nice picture on the front, the names of the people presenting, where they can get coffee, the times that dinner is being served, very, very basic things. The code of conduct that Val wanted us to include was an anti-harassment code of conduct, simply stating that we wouldn't stand for any forms of harassment at this conference. And at first it seemed to me to be a little unusual. And then I thought about where she was coming from and the types of conferences and professional circles that she was in. And it became very obvious to me that of course this was something that would be needed, because there has been such a record of harassment, particularly of women at tech conferences where women are in such small numbers. So that was the way that she did it. I thought was really impressive as well. Just to simply say that as a condition of her talking, that she wanted us to do that, and we did, and I was very happy that we did.
Yeah, I believe also that we did that, and it's become part of what we do now at Stevens. When we hosted the recent Frederick Winslow Taylor conference, our anti-harassment policy was right there on the screen, visible for anyone who came to visit.
Oh, my degree is in computer science, and I had sort of heard of Ada, but I really came to the foreground when I had to start learning the Ada programming language. They named the programming language after her, as I'm sure you're aware. Basically, it's like Pascal, but I guess sort of an extended version of that. So that was an honor. I'm assuming it was a great honor to have a programming language named after her.
Few others have had that same honor. I mean, Mr. Joe Java. There are others, but yeah, it's.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I want you to speak a little bit more on. Would you, I guess, identify Ada's legacy as being interdisciplinary?
Certainly. So, and this is a good opportunity to kind of turn from the topic in general to the book that we've just published with ACM Press and Morgan and Claypool. The book is called Ada's Legacy: Cultures of Computing from the Victorian to the Digital Age. Mm-hmm. And it started with this conference that we were just describing that we held at Stevens. The book isn't a biography of Ada Lovelace. There are several biographies out there, nor is it a fine-grained look at Ada's contributions to computing. Instead, it is analysis of Ada's legacy, literally. That means what she had accomplished herself, and how people in other fields have taken up her legacy, often in ways that don't necessarily relate to things that she did in her life. And so when we put out our call for papers, we were, I don't know if we were surprised. I was a little surprised. Maybe Robin wasn't surprised at how many different people responded, saying either that their disciplines or their own work have been touched by their memory of Ada, or their concept of Ada's legacy. So people in history, people in computer science, people in the arts, activists, cartoonists, people in science fiction, people in literature, and so on. So,
right, when we sent out our call for papers, we did mention it's an interdisciplinary conference, and people really took that seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So both the book is an interdisciplinary approach to thinking about how Ada lives on after Ada's life. and the topic, the different legacies that Ada has left is certainly something where we can see different disciplines and different ways of seeing the world coming into contact with each other.
So the book, tell me, is there like what would be the main argument or the premise of the book, Ada's Legacy?
Yeah, so it's, as I said, it's not a biography, and it's not solely assessing her contributions to STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, or her place in computer history. Instead, the goal is simply to illustrate the depth and diversity associated with her work, and to showcase really the different communities and the different people who have taken on her name, and in that way advanced some notion of who she was, and who she is, and who she can be still in the 21st century. So as I said, there are a number of different scholars from a number of different disciplines who have something to say about Ada. It's also interesting that some of these contributions are at odds with one another. So you mentioned the Ada programming language. Maybe we can talk about that later, but it seems strange on the surface that this is something standardized by the Department of Defense. And we certainly don't, Robin told us about Ada's life and times. I don't see a strong military connection with Ada in her life. So here's a good example of a group of people taking Ada's name and taking her legacy and using it outside a realm that Ada herself might have identified as hers.
But still, I guess they wanted to. It was an honorary thing when they named the language after her.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. So, so on the one hand, so this presents a little bit of a puzzle for us to think about Ada's legacy, and we see this throughout the various chapters in the book. On the one hand, there is some consistency that we see, a respect for Ada, a certain awareness that the name Ada Lovelace advances certain values, which we take mostly to be good values these days about opportunity for women in mathematics and computing. There are also critics of Ada who say, well, she was just a wealthy woman, a crazy woman, someone from the upper crust of British society, and this isn't my role model. And that's something to be taken seriously as well. Right. But at least in our book, we don't have a chapter that really takes on that critical edge. Most of them celebrate.
Andy, we're gonna have to break. Andy, we got to make a break. We're at the bottom of the hour. We'll continue on. We're talking to Stevens Institute of Technology, Dr. Andrew Russell, and Dr. Robin Hammerman. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? Not so great, huh? It's a fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they are available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com. Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering, or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no-kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
No, the Cobb salad he served actually had corn cobs in it. Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America, this time clip-a-phone. It's the opposite of a selfie and everybody elsey. We got in clip-a-phone, a rig that attaches to the brim of a cap to create a strap-in stand for a smartphone and comes with a small remote fob you can use to snap pictures. The cap brim grabber has ramped ridges that make it easy to slip on but tougher to remove. The top stand clamps the camera between a solid panel and a cushion curve, while a rubbery top band belts the camera into place. You're a little more likely to have your cap come loose than to have this gizmo let go. Bottom line, with a smartphone in a clip-a-phone, its camera looks where you look and makes taking snaps a snap. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. 33 minutes past the hour here. Thank you, Marty Winston, for that News Tip Bulletin review.
Yep.
And, we have so much to cover in this hour. I feel like we're not going to get to it all, but we're going to try to get to it as much as possible here with Dr. Andrew Russell and Dr. Robin Hammerman. And, yeah, we've just started to get into Ada's Legacy, which is a book. And Andy, I'm sorry we had to kind of cut you off there. Did you want to finish your thought before we moved on?
Yeah, well, I think I was really kind of going to transition to the story of how the book came about.
Okay. Right. Sure.
Okay, so we had this conference that I described it in the first segment, this interdisciplinary conference at Stevens. We had a terrific response to our call for papers, and we recruited Valerie Aurora to do a special lecture that had double billing, a keynote lecture for the conference, and the provost at Stevens, George Corfiatis, has a Women in Leadership lecture series, and so Valerie did a great job there. The other keynote speaker that we recruited turns out to have been a key player in the rest of the story. His name is Tom Misa. Tom Misa is a historian of technology and computing who's at the University of Minnesota. He's the director of the Charles Babbage Institute for the History of Information Technology. And he, crucially, is the series editor for a new History of Computing series published by ACM Press. He's also the head of the ACM History Committee. So Tom is deeply involved in the history of computing world, and as you would expect from someone who's the head of the Babbage Institute, knows quite a bit about Charles Babbage and therefore Lovelace.
So now he obviously had a lot of contributions to the book, and the notion that Ada Lovelace was the world's first computer programmer actually has been an ongoing conversation in the history of computing. So how does the chapter by Tom Misa address that issue, Andy?
Yeah, so this is, I think, one of the strongest chapters in the book. It's our first chapter, and it's the only chapter that really takes on Ada's life and seeks to recast or reinterpret her life, and especially her work with Charles Babbage, her collaboration with Charles Babbage. So the shorthand that we hear applied to Ada is that she was the world's first computer programmer.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been fodder for debate and discussion amongst computing historians for many years. Ada's her contributions weren't really well known for a while, and then were resurrected a little bit in the 1950s. In that generation of computing historians who celebrated her contributions. And in fact, just as a kind of side note, this is how the Ada programming language got its name. Yeah. That some of the guys who were developing that programming language and decided to name it had read a history of computing that spoke favorably of Ada. So they decided to name the language in favor of Ada. So in his chapter in the book, Misa says, first, look, there's a long relationship between, an intimate relationship between Babbage and Lovelace. Some historians have spoken very harshly about Ada. They've called her mad as a hatter. They've played up some of her substance abuse later in her life, and really said that she has no business being credited with much of anything. And so Misa took up this topic in his chapter and really looked at the role that Ada played in working with Babbage, and in particular in popularizing his the calculating machine that he designed but didn't build, the analytical engine.
Right. Well, now there's some. We're just not going to have time, and I understand that you can't spend the entire hour with us. You're going to have to leave in about another few minutes. But Robin, in the book itself, in the several of the chapters are on the subjects of fiction and literature, and I know Andy touched on it. But what was Ada's legacy in those fields? What would
well, in her time, Ada had some pretty famous literary friends, including Charles Dickens. Everyone's heard of Charles Dickens, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dickens was, in fact, perhaps more so than Ada, but again, Ada's come into her own. But Dickens was, in fact, among Ada's most supportive friends during her difficult struggle with cancer. He was so emphatic, and his kindness brought her a good bit of emotional relief. And the salon culture of Ada's time, and don't worry, I'll get to the legacy part in a minute. But the salon culture of Ada's time is interesting to know about. Perhaps by our standards, it was intellectually democratic. That is, scientists, politicians, and inventors mingled with poets, philosophers, and musicians. Her legacy in fiction and literature is a testimony to that world in which she was an able participant. Lovelace's only published work during her lifetime was the 1843 translation, her notes. But she obtained a positive form of her letters, subsequently collected and published by Betty Toole, still a foundational text. Writers in the 20th and 21st century creatively recast what Ada's life and work was all about in truly imaginative and inventive ways. Part 2 of Ada's legacy of our book really brilliantly examines them. We learn about how in fictional representations of Ada, we see a world which never was, but which could have been, especially in steampunk novels such as The Difference Engine by William Gibson and Bruce Sterling in 1990, and more recently, All Men of Genius by Lev A.C. Rosen in 2011. It's exciting to see that Ada is as a representational figure of the tech world is more recently entering other genres of literature too, including children's literature, which we haven't examined thoroughly in our book. There's actually a new book that just came out in October 2015 for children called Ada Byron Lovelace and the Thinking Machine by Laurie Woolmark. So it's wonderful to know. And of course, there's the recent comic graphic novel by Sidney Padua, who graciously provided us with the marvelous illustrations of our book. Her Thrilling Adventures of Lovelace and Babbage was published in April 2015 by Pantheon, which is a great publishing house and a publishing house that was responsible for very important graphic novels such as Persepolis and Mouse. So she is part of a distinguished company indeed. We're very fortunate to have Sidney do some drawings for us.
Yeah, they were marvelous illustrations. I was wondering how you acquired them. So that certainly explains that.
Well, she was very gracious, and she was part of our conference proceedings. So we were so fortunate that she came, and there we had a preview of the book. She has she really did some wonderful work in that book. She elevated Charles Babbage's plans for the analytical engine in Thrilling Adventures, which was not an easy task since the drawings were rather, flat.
I need to go back and say a little bit more about the Babbage and Lovelace collaboration in the analytical engine, because it really is a foundational tale in computer history. So Charles Babbage is this polymath in Victorian England. He's a brilliant mathematician. He's an economist. He's in politics, and he's a tinkerer. And he dreams up calculating machines, one called the analytical engine. So he designs plans, but never built the thing. Okay, so this is important. I'm going to come back to this later. So it's designed but never built. At some point, he went to a conference in Italy in 1840. He took a set of his plans with him, and he had a conversation with a guy named Luigi Minabria, who was himself a brilliant guy, went on to be prime minister of Italy. At the time, he was a professor of construction, I think, in Turin. And Minabria was taken by these plans, and a couple years later published a short description of the analytical engine. And these are this is the core of the thing that made Lovelace famous in a way, that Lovelace translated Manabria's work and added a few modest notes at the end. And these are the notes that Robin mentioned before. These notes turn out to be some of the most momentous writings in the history of computing. And this is where we get to the nub of why she's considered the world's first computer programmer. Although, as Misa explains, this might be overblown. So in her notes, Lovelace does a number of things. She not only translates what Minabria wrote, but then she goes on to explain a couple of other aspects for how the analytical engine might work, including putting together a description of how one might calculate the Bernoulli numbers, which is I mean, you guys know that better than I do. You're computer scientists. I'm a historian. So it's actually a pretty tricky thing to do, but she did it. And so the first computer programmer claim comes down to, as Misa says in his chapter, that it's Lovelace created a step-by-step sequence of instructions or an algorithm for computing the series of Bernoulli's numbers that could be used by this machine that Babbage designed if it was built. Okay, so she wrote a program for a machine that we now see as the first computer. Wasn't built, so the program never ran on it. So then the question is, can you really call her the first computer programmer if the program wasn't ever run on a computer? So this is where the historians can fight about what's a computer, what's a program, all these different things.
Was there any effort to transcribe that later on when computers became, and to see if this would actually run? Was there any efforts done, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, it's not something that Robin or I know too well, but there was in the British, the Science Museum, a guy named Doran Swade there actually built the analytical engine in the last 10 years or so. I don't know the date right off the top of my head.
And I believe there's one made of Lego.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, exactly.
So yes, I mean the math works, So this leads, I mean, there's a couple things. So does it actually work? Yes, even though it didn't run. Is it a contribution? I think the answer there is also yes, although, as Misa says, the claim that she's the first computer program needs to be carefully qualified. In Misa's qualification, and this is actually a big contribution to the literature here, is that we should grant to her primary authorship of the first algorithm intended for a computing machine. Okay, so she's the author of the first algorithm intended for a computing machine. We can be confident about that. If you want to boil that down to first computer programmer, that's your business. But certainly we can say that with great certainty.
Right. Well, again, we're almost out of time here. I know that both of you have to leave shortly in a matter of a couple of minutes. But if people want to get the book, Ada's Legacy, where can they get it?
You can get on the Morgan and Claypool website or ACM Press website. It's a
both roads lead to one another.
Yes, exactly.
ACM.org and morganandclaypool.com,
I think. Yeah, we should have a better answer for that question. I would just go to a search engine and type in Ada's Legacy ACM Press, and you'll find the Morgan and Claypool store there.
Is it?
It's available in paperback and in ebook format as well.
I was going to say, is it like a coffee table book, something you can, or is it strictly paperback, or is there a hardcover available? And so, how much? What can one expect to pay for the book?
There is a hardcover version available.
The paperback is around $40. I think the ebook is
About
$24.95.
Mm-hmm.
So affordable.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm curious.
And subscribers to the ACM Digital Library also can get access to this. They need to, and that includes any ACM member. They need to subscribe to ACM Books, and from there they can get access to Ada's Legacy and any number of books that that the ACM publishes, both history books and more straightforward computer science books.
Yeah, and again, the ACM is the Associated Computing Machinery, and
that's right.
Yeah, exactly. And if you remember, certainly, if you remember the Association of Computing Machinery, I know. I mean, especially if you've been into the computer sciences, I just like to get this book for myself. So, I want to get a copy of it. So that's why I was asking.
So he can pretend that he's read it.
No, I want to read it. No,
I know.
I want to get a copy of it. It sounds like it's a fascinating read. And listen,
Wonderful read, and it really does appeal to readers of every stripe, whether you're a computer science person or an artist. It's for you.
Yeah,
and we can say this. We wrote a few small sections in the introductory sections, but the work is really done by the authors of the individual chapters, and we're really proud of the work that they did, and the publication quality that the team at ACM and Morton Claypool did, and Tom Misa, again, the vision for getting us to pull this together in time, by the way, for the 200th anniversary of Ada Lovelace's birth, which is in December 2015,
All right.
A month from now.
And that is Ada Lovelace Day. Okay. So listen, again, this is a fascinating interview. I'm glad that both of you were able to take the time to let our listeners know about this and the book itself. We have links at our website at computeramerica.com that you can go to and find out if you're interested in getting the book. I know I certainly am. Doctors, I want to thank both of you, Dr. Robert Hammerman and Dr. Andrew Russell. Both of you taking the time to be here on the Computer America show today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you also for having us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. And the best of luck to both of you. Thank you again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. So there you go. The book, the many topics that it touches upon, I think are extremely fascinating. And again, you can get the book from the paperback is about $40. That means the hardcover is going to be quite a bit more.
Most of those kinds of books don't really have a hardcover.
Yeah, but they said there was a hardcover version.
That's true.
Yeah, so she did say that. So we'll have to check that out. Okay, so that,
and I hear there are wonderful illustrations in there as well. So if you're one of those people who reads books for the pictures.
Well, now that the artist was, if I got it right, was comic books, an illustrator, comic book illustrator, and did some really interesting illustrations, and that's why I think it might make for a nice coffee table book. On top of that, if you want to get the hardcover version, but certainly the at least the paperback version is available.
Right.
$4. Okay, so
who thought going into that interview where we're talking about a woman who, only lived to 37, who lived in the early 1800s, and has a grandiose title as let's see, the first author of an algorithm intended for a computing device, or the first programmer, whichever one you want to be pedantic about. But who thought going into that would have her life would have really a huge relevance to computers and technology?
Yeah, really. I mean, she's right up there again with the scientists of her day, like Madame Curie, and I mean,
Mr. Babbage.
Yeah, Mr. Babbage. Yeah. And I called it the indifference. I meant the difference engine. I think I called it the indifference.
Yes, you did. I thought that was hilarious.
I meant the difference engine. Sorry about that.
You said indifference, but I was indifference to correcting you.
Exactly. All right, I think we have time to do a couple of computer and technology news stories. So
one or two.
Why don't we do that now? Today's computer and technology news is brought to you by Slimware Utilities, the official optimization software of Computer America. You can visit them at slimwareutilities.com to clean, speed up, and optimize your Windows system. Visit them at slimwareutilities.com.
Right. So, yeah, as Craig said, we only have about a minute or two, a couple minutes to do one or two news stories. And I really like this one here, which is promotion and advertising going a step beyond. And there have always been these events where, they'll do some kind of crazy shtick. They'll, do something or the other just to grab the attention and be a little bit different in terms of advertising. Well, Xbox have done just that with their new release, Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is, of course, the second in the second game in the reboot of Tomb Raider. And yeah, their whole shtick with this one is that they're going to have a bunch of people on a billboard. You know, the kind where you normally see static pictures. But yeah, on a billboard, they have, at least from what I've seen, about 8 people.
I mean, they're actually going to be standing on the billboard? And
they're doing it now. You can go to twitch.tv or twitch.tv/Xbox.
And
you can see these people. If you're watching the video portion of the show, they're actually there standing. And they have this weird integration with Twitch, which is, of course, showing the video and delivering it. And they've integrated it with Twitter so that people can vote online as to what the weather conditions, because again, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Survival of the Grittiest is what the billboards reads. And so they've taken a bunch of famous YouTubers, people who make digital content and of course have a sizable audience by themselves, and they have a chance to win something or other. I think it's like a trip, like a flight somewhere.
Well, they're going to need it because they're being subjected to like extreme weather conditions, like what?
Extreme and not extreme. They do have commercial breaks every half hour or so. Whatever the government said that you have to let these people walk around and go to the bathroom. So when they do commercial breaks, they get down off. They let them use the bathroom, and then they were allowed to bring Gatorade and beef jerky. So they eat, drink, and go to the bathroom during the commercial breaks. But for the majority of the time, they are just standing there on that one little pedestal on this interactive billboard that, again, you take to Twitter, you vote using the proper hashtag, and you vote for heat, rain, snow, wind, whatever you want to vote for. And the winner at the end of I think it's like every 30 minutes or every hour, they vote for a new weather event. So, these people can for half an hour be standing in pouring rain. And then the next half hour, they could be standing in freezing snow. And then the next half hour, they could be standing in right next to heat lamps. So this is, again, Survival of the Grittiest, and it's the last man standing, of course, wins those trips to those exotic locations that are featured in the video game.
So you're saying one of those 8 people there are going to win the trip?
There used to be 8, by the way. There are currently 7. Whoever was standing in front of the GR.
Yeah, it's gone?
Dropped out.
Couldn't take it, huh? The pressure.
It dropped out. Hopefully not dropped off, because that might be painful. I'm sure they have some kind of safety precautions. They're obviously standing in some kind of heated, insulated suits with helmets. But
how high is this billboard off the ground?
High enough. If you're watching the video, they have the camera set up somewhere that you can see trains and cars passing by. So it's the billboard is.
Do people passing by? Do people passing by actually realize that those are actually living people and not some? Do they? I'm wondering what kind of.
If I was driving by it, I would definitely notice. I mean, these people are, they're doing everything they can to stay standing, move around, keep the blood flowing, and really, just kind of hang in there. So yeah, there's movement going on.
If it's near a highway, though, couldn't that be dangerous? I mean, you're driving and you get distracted by that.
This is in Europe, by the way. So this is not an American billboard. And of course, like I said, lots and lots of safety equipment and precautions have been going into this. So I doubt any deaths will result from this.
Well, the author says this may be a small price to pay to be a digital weather god for a little while.
And again, this is a new thing in advertising, because this is, again, very much an advertisement. They have thousands of people sitting in Twitch watching a billboard. I mean, really, that's what they're doing. They're sitting there, they're watching a billboard, and of course, it's interactive, and you're watching these people actually weather the elements. But at the end of the day, this is just a highly interactive form of advertising. And I think it's very, very clever.
Extremely clever, I would think. Yeah, exactly. Wow. So anyway, when is this over? When is this billboard thing over?
I assume it's till the last man standing. It's it's probably going to go on until there's two left, and the one falls over from exhaustion, and then the last guy wins. So you can go find this again, twitch.tv/Xbox, and you can see all of them there. And of course, participate in the lovely Twitch chat that's going on there. Take to Twitter, interact, vote for. Personally, if we want these people to drop as fast as possible, I say take to Twitter and vote rain, snow, rain, snow, rain, snow. And that will get those people out of there as fast as possible.
Exactly. Well, that about wraps up the show. Again, I want to thank Slimware Utilities, Kevin Thomas, for being with us here in the first hour, talking about Windows 10 and privacy tools that they make available to really let you adjust and easily
90 seconds.
Your privacy, all the privacy issues with your copy of Windows 10. That was a really terrific hour. And of course, again, Stevens University, we had both Dr. Andrew Russell and Dr. Robin Hammerman talking about Ada Lovelace and the legacy in the book, Ada's Legacy. Thanks to them for being with us here. Tomorrow, we're going to have It's All Bond. And I'm not talking about the movie, Spectre, although I'd like to.
60 seconds.
Ralph Bond is going to be joining us from Autodesk. And Ralph's got some great stories. He goes out and finds stories that are of interest to everybody. We're going to talk about the new 360-degree Litro camera. We got Pixelo, turns your smartphone into a 3D scanner. So he's got some really great stories here. And even a tiny disc that turns your analog watch into a smartwatch. Just some of the stories we're going to be talking to Ralph about on tomorrow night's show. Thank you all for being with us here. And Ben and I will see you here same time, same place. So until tomorrow afternoon, this is Craig Crossman hoping that your hard disk never becomes floppy. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
10 seconds.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay, again, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you with Ralph Bond tomorrow at the same time, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.